Have you ever felt like the clock is ticking faster than you expected? Like the days, the years seem to slip through your fingers, leaving you with the feeling that maybe you could be living more fully, more consciously. If you're between 55 and 75 years old, this video is for you. You're not here to waste your life, and today I'm sharing 7 key lessons to help you make the most of this stage, a stage full of opportunities to rediscover your purpose, free yourself from unnecessary burdens, and live with wisdom. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Stay until the end, because what you'll discover could change not only how you live now, but also how you choose to face every day you have ahead. Let's begin. Number 1, your body is your best guide. As the years go by, it's common for the body to start sending signals we'd rather ignore. Persistent aches, loss of agility, changes in energy. For many, these signals feel like the enemy, a constant reminder that time is running out. But what if I told you that your body isn't an enemy, but a teacher that can show you more than you might think? The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us of a fundamental truth. Take care of your body, but don't become obsessed with it. Keep a balance. The balance he spoke of isn't just about staying active or following a diet. It's about how we listen to and respect our bodies over time. As we age, it's essential to stop fighting against our bodies and start seeing them as allies, guiding us through the natural changes of life. Think about it this way. When we feel pain or fatigue, it's not just an inconvenience, it's a message. Our bodies speak to us, but we're so used to ignoring them or viewing them as betrayers that we don't listen. Rather than continuing to demand the same things we did in our youth, we can learn to adjust our expectations, to stop rushing and enjoy the journey. Slowing down doesn't mean stopping, it means changing how we move forward. A great example of this approach is the renowned author and physician Oliver Sacks, who wrote extensively on the body and mind in old age. In his essay, The Joy of Old Age, he says, "My life has been rich and adventurous, and now, as the end approaches, I feel immense gratitude for having been part of the human experience. My body is wearing down, but I can still enjoy its wonderful memories and abilities." This kind of gratitude isn't about resignation, it's about active acceptance, recognizing that the body can remain a source of joy, wisdom, and connection to life, even with its limitations. A crucial shift is learning to ask ourselves, what is my body telling me today? Maybe it's asking for more rest or a different form of exercise that suits your age better. If you used to be able to run without issue, maybe now is the time to take up walking outdoors, enjoying the rhythm of the world around you. If you used to work long hours non-stop, perhaps your body now needs regular breaks to breathe and recharge. Modern medicine also shows us that the connection between body and mind is unbreakable. What you do for your body directly affects your mind, and vice versa. If you ignore physical signals, you'll soon see the impact on your mood, your ability to enjoy life, and your peace of mind. This is part of what's called holistic care, tending to both body and mind without neglecting either. To help you care for your body and, in turn, your overall well-being, ask yourself daily, what does my body need to feel good today? Maybe it's asking for more movement, or maybe it needs more calm, better nourishment, or simply a deeper connection with yourself. That's the true wisdom of the body. It guides us toward what we need, but only if we're willing to listen. The lesson here isn't to surrender to the changes that come with time, but to adjust, adapt, and work with your body, not against it. After all, as Seneca said, life, if well lived, is long enough. How are you using the time you have left? Listening to your body, tending to it, and caring for it is one of the most powerful ways to ensure that the years ahead are not only long, but also rich in quality and fulfillment. Number 2, Break free from the old roles that define you. For most of our lives, we've been defined by the roles we play: parent, worker, boss, caregiver, husband, or wife. These roles have given us purpose, structure, and a sense of identity. But there comes a time when those labels are no longer as necessary, or they even start to fade away. Children grow up and follow their own paths, careers come to an end, and many of the responsibilities that once filled your days now seem distant. So, what remains when those titles disappear? It's natural to feel uncertainty at this stage, even fear. After all, we've spent decades embodying those roles, and letting them go can feel like losing a part of ourselves. But here lies both a great challenge and a wonderful opportunity, discovering who you are without the labels you've worn all your life. The writer and philosopher Aldous Huxley wrote, "It's not what you are that holds you back, it's what you think you are not." The belief that you lack identity without those roles is an illusion we need to break. You may no longer be the worker or the full-time parent, but that doesn't mean your essence has vanished. In fact, this is the perfect moment to reconnect with other parts of yourself, with desires and passions you may have set aside while fulfilling those obligations. Imagine, for example, that your entire life was defined by your career. Perhaps you were a lawyer, a teacher, or a business owner, and your daily routine revolved around that. But now that this chapter has closed, what else can you be? What other facets of yourself are waiting to be explored? This is your time to rediscover those forgotten parts. Maybe you love gardening, always wanted to learn to paint, or wish to devote time to causes that matter to you. The key is to allow yourself to be something new, to break the mold and explore new ways of living. A powerful example of this is the life of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who, after experiencing the worst of humanity, dedicated his life to finding meaning. Frankl often said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." This idea is profound because it shows us that when external circumstances no longer define us, we have the chance to transform our identity from within. So, what can you do? The first step is to release the roles that are no longer useful or necessary. This doesn't mean you should forget what you did or who you were, but rather that you shouldn't let those titles limit you. Recognizing that your worth doesn't lie in the labels you wore for years, but in the person who's always been behind them, is liberating. It creates space for new ways of being, new experiences, and a deeper connection with yourself. Secondly, it's important to allow yourself to explore. What interests you now that you didn't have time for before? What activities, people, or learning opportunities catch your attention? Instead of thinking that your best years are behind you, start viewing this stage as an opportunity to create a new version of yourself, a richer version full of possibilities. Breaking free from old roles isn't about losing yourself, it's about discovering new parts of yourself you haven't yet explored. As Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." This is your chance to awaken and rediscover who you are, beyond the titles you once carried. Number 3, recognize the value of the time you have left. Throughout life, time seems like an endless resource. We spend decades caught up in our work, families, and responsibilities, convinced there will always be a later for the things that truly matter. But at some point, around 50 or 60, our perception of time changes. We realize it's not infinite, which can cause anxiety, or at best, a profound awakening. The philosopher and poet Rabindranath Tagore wrote, "Time is a treasure that must not be wasted." At this stage, it's essential to change our relationship with time. It's no longer about how many days there are, but how we choose to live each day we have. Instead of looking to the future with fear or regret, now is the time to ask yourself, How can I make the time I have left more valuable, more meaningful? One of the most common traps at this age is to keep doing things out of sheer habit. Maybe you still maintain activities or commitments that no longer fulfill you, simply because you've always done it that way, or because you feel others expect you to keep up the role. But this is where a crucial reflection comes in. The time you have left shouldn't be a continuation of empty routines, but a space to consciously choose how you spend it. The richness of your life doesn't lie in time itself, but in how you use it. Let's think about the concept of carpe diem, popularized by the Roman poet Horace, which means seize the day. While it's often repeated to the point of cliché, its essence is more relevant than ever. It's not about living in recklessness or urgency, but about filling each moment with meaning. What are you spending your time on now? Do those activities bring you closer to what you truly value? Consider someone who's spent a lifetime working hard, with little time for family or personal interests, always thinking there'd be later for those things. But that later never arrives by magic. You have to create it actively. The time you have now is yours, valuable not because it's infinite, but precisely because it's limited. That's the beauty of this stage in life. The urgency of time invites you to be more selective, more conscious. A story that beautifully illustrates this is Jane's. At 70, after becoming a widow, she realized she'd lived much of her life for others, her children, her husband, her job. And while she'd enjoyed that stage, she saw that there were many things she'd left undone. For years, she'd postponed her dream of learning to play the piano, always thinking that someday she'd have the time. One day, looking at the date on her calendar, she realized there was no time to waste and decided to enroll in lessons. Learning the piano at her age wasn't easy, but the result wasn't what mattered. She didn't become a concert pianist, but rather that she was finally dedicating her time to something that made her feel alive. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic thinkers, constantly reminded us, you must rise each morning determined to make the most of the day because you don't know how much time you have left. The goal isn't to live in fear of the end, but with clear awareness that the time you have is enough to do what matters, as long as you choose to invest it in what brings you peace, joy, and purpose. So, what can you do today to revalue your time? Start by taking inventory. How have you been spending your days? Which activities fulfill you and which ones drain you? Make a list of things you've always wanted to do but have postponed, and start making them happen, even if it's in small steps. The time you have left is a valuable resource. Don't treat it as just a ticking clock, but as a tool for building the life you truly want. Remember, the value of time isn't measured by how much you have, but by the quality with which you live it. Don't waste your days waiting for an uncertain tomorrow. Today is all you have, and if you make the most of it, it will be more than enough. If you're enjoying this video so far and feel that you're discovering new ways to live between 55 and 75 with greater wisdom and clarity, I invite you to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps me continue creating content that genuinely adds value for those who want to live this stage with purpose, balance, and inner peace. Stay until the end, because Lesson 7 might completely change how you see wisdom as the greatest tool for transforming your days and making them richer. Let's continue. Number 4, free yourself from the weight of your story. It's easy to carry the weight of the past, mistakes made, dreams unfulfilled, or choices that once seemed right, but now feel like a heavy burden you can't shake. Over the years, we build a narrative about ourselves, one that sometimes defines us more than it should. But what if I told you that you can leave that weight behind? That you don't have to be a prisoner of your own story? One of the biggest obstacles at this stage of life is the tendency to get stuck in cycles of regret or guilt. Thoughts like, if only I'd done things differently, or it's too late to change become mental barriers that keep us from moving forward. But the Stoic philosopher Seneca taught us something powerful. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Often, it's our interpretation of past events, not the events themselves, that causes our suffering. The good news is that you can change that interpretation. This isn't about erasing your story, but about reshaping how you relate to it. Here, both Stoic wisdom and modern psychology agree. The past has no power over you unless you give it that power. A clear example of this is the concept of self-narrative, studied by psychologists. Your personal story is largely a construction, a series of events that you've organized into a coherent story about who you are. But that narrative isn't fixed. It doesn't have to be the same one you created decades ago. You can choose which parts of your story still serve you and which no longer hold relevance. By doing so, you free yourself from the invisible chains binding you to a past that no longer exists. Take, for instance, the story of Thomas, a 68-year-old man who had carried the weight of missing several important career opportunities in his youth. For years, he told himself that because of those missed chances, he had never reached his full potential. That narrative had become a truth that shaped his emotions and decisions. However, after a period of introspection and therapy, Thomas decided that his story didn't have to be defined by those moments. He reframed his life, realizing that while he didn't achieve those specific goals, he accomplished many things he was deeply proud of: a close-knit family, loyal friends, and a legacy of integrity in everything he did. Here, Carl Jung's insight becomes especially meaningful. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. This phrase perfectly captures our ability to redefine our relationship with the past. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you remember it and what role it plays in your life today. If you allow past failures or wounds to keep dictating your choices, you'll keep carrying a burden that's no longer yours to bear. The first step to freeing yourself from the weight of your story is to accept what was, without judgment. As Epictetus said, we are not affected by events, but by the view we take of them. This means the past itself is neutral. It's you who gives it meaning. And if you have the power to create that meaning, you also have the power to transform it. What's holding you back from your past? A choice you didn't make? A mistake you can't forgive yourself for? Take a pause and reflect. If you could speak to your past self, what would you say? You might be surprised by how compassionate you could be if you viewed your decisions with understanding rather than reproach. The second step is to release judgment. Mistakes are part of life, and each one has brought you to the present, where you have the opportunity to live with greater awareness. Judgments about what should have been are pointless. What matters is what you do now with the time you have left. Remember that the past isn't a prison unless you choose to lock yourself in. You can free yourself from the weight of your story and move forward lighter with a new narrative that allows you to live fully in the present and open yourself to the future with hope. Let your story be just that, a story and not the definition of your life. Number 5, solitude is not your enemy, it's your teacher. As we reach a certain age, solitude can become an unexpected companion. Children have moved on, work responsibilities have lessened, and the people who once surrounded us may no longer be as present. This can create a void that we often try to fill with distractions or even with fear. But solitude doesn't have to steal life from you. In fact, if you approach it with a different mindset, solitude can become one of your greatest teachers. We waste much of life fearing loneliness or constantly avoiding moments of silence. Yet solitude, if experienced consciously, can be a doorway to a deeper relationship with yourself. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "The fullest life is one experienced in solitude, for it is then that a person is with themselves." It's in those moments of introspection that you can discover parts of yourself you hadn't noticed before, or even reconnect with forgotten passions. Society often paints solitude as something negative, something to avoid at all costs. And yet, how often have we felt lonelier while surrounded by people? Solitude doesn't necessarily mean the absence of company. Rather, it's an opportunity to be present with yourself without the constant need for external validation. If you allow yourself to learn from it, you'll see that solitude can be a fertile space for personal growth, for better understanding your desires, your fears, and what you truly value at this stage of life. Instead of viewing solitude as an enemy that steals your precious time, you can transform it into a resource to enrich each day. Perhaps this is the time to dive deeper into activities that bring you meaning, like reading, art, or simply spending time in nature. People who learn to enjoy their own company make the best use of their time because they don't rely on the external to feel complete. I remember the story of Clara, a 72-year-old woman who felt completely lost after the death of her husband. For years, her life had revolved around him, and suddenly, she found herself alone. At first, she tried filling her time with activities and social engagements, but it didn't bring her satisfaction. Eventually, Clara decided that instead of fearing solitude, she would embrace it. She began dedicating time to meditation, journaling, and long walks in the park. To her surprise, in that silence, she found not only comfort, but also a new source of joy. She discovered that solitude wasn't empty. It was filled with possibilities for better understanding herself. As the poet Rainer Maria Rilke said, "The only journey is the one within." Sometimes we waste our lives searching outwardly for answers that we can only find inside ourselves. And in this stage of life, solitude may be the key to accessing those answers. In those moments of stillness, we can ask the important questions. What do I want for the years ahead? What makes me feel alive? What do I want to leave behind? And what do I want to cultivate? The lesson here isn't to avoid solitude, but to embrace it. We live in a society that pushes us to always be connected to others, but rarely are we taught the value of connecting with ourselves. This is the perfect time to invest in that relationship, the most important one of all. If you feel that solitude is starting to weigh on you, ask yourself, what is it teaching me? Perhaps it's a call to take better care of yourself, to listen more closely, to discover what you truly desire in this phase of your life. Far from being an enemy, solitude is an invitation not to waste your days searching outside for what you already carry within. In the end, making the most of life isn't just about being surrounded by people or activities, it's about being at peace with yourself, about enjoying your own company. Solitude, when truly understood, offers you a space to flourish, to rediscover the richness within, and to realize that you're never truly alone when you have yourself. Number 6, freedom lies in knowing how to say goodbye. Throughout life, we accumulate experiences, people, habits, and even identities that once felt essential. However, there comes a point when many of these things no longer serve us, yet we continue holding on to them, and that's when, often without realizing it, we start wasting our lives by clinging to what no longer has meaning. True freedom isn't just in what we add to our lives, but in what we learn to let go of. Letting go can be difficult because of a fear of loss or change. We cling to relationships that no longer nourish us, to routines that no longer bring us joy, or to an image of ourselves that no longer reflects who we truly are. But as poet Khalil Gibran said, when the pain of holding on is greater than the pain of letting go, it's time to let go. This is a powerful reminder that sometimes what weighs us down most isn't what we lack, but what we're too afraid to release. To understand this concept, imagine that your life is like a hot air balloon wanting to rise and soar to new heights. But every time you try to lift off, you find yourself tethered to the ground by sandbags. Those bags represent the emotional baggage, habits, roles, or relationships that no longer serve you, but that you still hold on to. If you don't release them, you'll never rise. You'll remain stuck in the same place, unable to move forward. When you decide to release those sandbags, whether it's the fear of letting go of an old identity or a comfortable but empty routine, the balloon can finally ascend. This is the process of letting go. It's not about giving up everything you love or need, but about releasing what, while once useful, now prevents you from moving forward. By letting go of that unnecessary weight, you allow yourself to soar higher, lighter, toward new experiences that truly nourish you. At this stage of life, it's natural to feel that many things have changed. Maybe before, your identity was deeply tied to your work, but now, in retirement, that role no longer defines you. Or perhaps you're holding onto a routine that once gave you security, but now feels like a prison. Letting go isn't easy, but it's necessary to avoid spending the remaining time in your life on things that no longer fulfill you. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This means that the obstacles we encounter, a relationship, a habit, or a routine, are not merely barriers, but opportunities to change direction and find a new path. Sometimes, what blocks our way is a sign that we need to make adjustments, not because we've failed, but because we've grown, and what once served us no longer does. So what should you let go of at this stage in life? Perhaps it's an old identity, like the tireless worker, that no longer holds meaning now that you've retired. Maybe it's a relationship that, while once important, now holds you back. Or perhaps it's an old dream that you didn't achieve, but that no longer matters to the person you are today. Knowing how to say goodbye isn't giving up. It's making space for the new, for what truly nourishes you. Saying goodbye with dignity means honoring what was, without clinging to what no longer is. It's a practice of acceptance, of releasing control over what you can no longer change. It's not about erasing the past, but about recognizing that it no longer defines your present or future. Remember, life isn't wasted only by what you don't do, but also by what you keep holding on to unnecessarily. Every goodbye you say to a situation, a routine, or a relationship is a chance to open yourself to new experiences, to live more authentically and freely. Instead of seeing endings as failures or losses, start viewing them as liberations. Just as a hot air balloon cannot fly if it doesn't release the weight holding it down, you cannot fully embrace your life if you don't let go of what holds you back. In doing so, you'll not only reclaim your time and energy, but also find that by saying goodbye to what no longer serves, you open the door to what truly matters. Number 7, wisdom is what gives value to your security. In later life, financial and physical security take on crucial importance, and it's easy to understand why. Many at this stage are concerned with ensuring they have enough to live with dignity, cover medical expenses, and avoid depending on others. And that concern is valid. After all, how can you enjoy life if you're struggling to make ends meet, or if the fear of financial instability keeps you up at night? Security is important, there's no denying that. But here's the central question. No matter how secure your finances, health, or environment may be, what is that security worth if you're not well on the inside? If your days are filled with worry, loneliness, or emptiness, no bank balance or real estate will fill that void. Wisdom, more than security, is what truly gives value to your life. Because even if you're financially secure, if you don't care for yourself, emotionally and mentally, you can end up living a gray life, devoid of meaning or joy. The key here is to balance both aspects. External security is essential for peace of mind, but inner wisdom is what allows you to enjoy and make the most of that security. As Seneca once said, "Wealth is the slave of the wise, but the master of fools." In other words, if you lack the wisdom to manage your resources, and above all, your inner well-being, then material security can become a source of stress instead of peace. Let's look at this from a practical perspective. Imagine someone who's worked their whole life to save for a peaceful retirement. They've achieved financial stability, which in itself is an accomplishment. But if that person, despite having financial security, remains trapped in negative thoughts, emotionally isolated, or consumed by worry, how are they benefiting from that security? Wisdom is what allows you to live serenely, to make good use of the resources you have, and to maintain a sense of purpose, even if those resources are limited. So while you take care of your security, also invest in your inner growth. Wisdom not only helps you make clearer decisions about your finances or health, but it also guides you to build more meaningful relationships, find joy in the everyday, and focus on what truly matters. Because if you don't know how to enjoy what you have, even the greatest wealth or stability becomes meaningless. A clear example of this balance is learning to manage what you have with serenity. Many people live in fear of losing what they've acquired, whether it's money, health, or possessions. That fear can consume their days, robbing them of life's enjoyment. But if you lean on wisdom, you can learn to appreciate what you have today without being obsessed with the fear of losing it. As the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer put it, "Wealth is like salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become." In other words, if you lack inner satisfaction, you'll always feel that something's missing, no matter how secure you are externally. So how can you balance this equation? First, make sure to take care of your material security. Develop sensible financial plans, keep an eye on your health, and organize your environment to be comfortable and safe. But don't stop there. Also, invest in your inner peace, in cultivating wisdom. This includes nurturing your relationships, learning to enjoy what you have, and practicing the art of letting go of worries that are beyond your control. True security comes from that combination, being well on the outside, but above all, at peace on the inside. It's pointless to have wealth if you're tormented, and stability if you can't enjoy what you've built. Remember, security is important, but wisdom is what gives it purpose. At the end of the day, making the most of life isn't just about accumulating more or being completely shielded from everything. It's about living each day with clarity, gratitude, and the understanding that your most valuable asset is your ability to be wise, to keep learning, and to find peace amid it all. Life, especially between the ages of 55 and 75, isn't a stage for giving up. It's one for rediscovery. It doesn't matter what you've been through, the opportunities you missed, or the mistakes you made. What matters is what you choose to do now, with the time you have ahead. Today, we explored 7 lessons that encourage you to let go of what holds you back, to embrace solitude as a space for growth, and to find true freedom in saying goodbye to what no longer serves you. The key to not wasting your life isn't in how much time you have left, but in how you choose to live it. Wisdom, the wisdom you've cultivated over the years, will guide you to make clearer decisions, to focus on what truly matters, and to approach each day with purpose. Remember, your life is still yours, and every choice you make can open new doors toward a fuller, more authentic, more meaningful existence. So, while you care for your security, don't forget to nurture your inner self. because at the end of the day, true peace doesn't come from material possessions, but from the ability to live with serenity, wisdom, and gratitude. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time on the channel, I invite you to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss the upcoming topics we'll be exploring. If you've made it this far, it means you take your personal growth seriously, and that deserves recognition. I want to know who's committed and made it to the end. So comment the phrase, "I am Stoic," and tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to read your stories and know who's with me on this journey of self-discovery. And don't leave without sharing this video with your loved ones. There may be someone in your life who needs to hear these words and find a new perspective today. Sometimes, a small piece of advice can make a big difference. See you in the next video.